Before we start our story, I am looking. Most people just watch videos, not subscribe. But I know you are not one of them. Subscribe now. Let's dive into our story. My daughter stormed into the house and shouted, "Dad, why did you lock the credit accounts?" My husband is furious. I looked at Emily standing there, fiercely defending the man who had been quietly stealing from me. Felt something stir in my chest. She didn't ask why I had protected my finances or investigated suspicious activity. She asked why I had locked the accounts, as if my money had somehow become shared property. She couldn't see the trap she had fallen into, couldn't see how Ryan had turned her love into a weapon and made her his shield. But I saw it all, and I would be the one to unmask him. The credit alert pierced through my quiet Friday afternoon like a fire alarm. 3:15 p.m., March 15th. And I was reviewing investment reports when my phone buzzed with a message that would change everything. Urgent, new account activity detected. At 68, my financial habits were predictable. 2 credit cards, cash payments, no new accounts in 5 years. This made no sense. I tapped the alert and felt my blood spike. 3 accounts, all opened using my information, all carrying massive balances. Chase Sapphire Reserve, $28,000, $400. American Express Platinum, $31,000, $200. Bank of America Premium, $25,000, $1,400. $85,000 in fraudulent debt attached to my name. The shock lasted 30 seconds. Then business instincts kicked in. I grabbed my laptop and pulled up my credit monitoring. The full picture emerged like a crime scene. Restaurant charges at places I'd never been. Electronics I'd never bought. Cash advances I'd never taken. But the mailing addresses stopped my heart cold. Every statement was being sent to 1247 Oakwood Drive. Emily's house. My daughter's address. Emily was a nurse at City Hospital. Responsible, honest, every Sunday. But Ryan Davis was different. Always talking about investments, cryptocurrency, marketing schemes to get rich quick. I didn't waste time on denial. 42 years running Johnson Construction taught me to fix problems immediately before they worsen. I opened Chase Bank's fraud line. I need to report identity theft and close this account immediately. The representative was efficient. Account frozen. Cards canceled. Investigation initiated. American Express. Next. Same procedure, same result. Bank of America followed. By 4:30, all fraudulent accounts were locked down tight. But I wasn't finished. I changed every password on every legitimate account. Banking, investments, credit monitoring, email. If someone had my information, they were about to be locked out completely. Next, I called my attorney, Daniel Carter. Daniel, document this. 3 identity theft cases, all pointing to my daughter's address. Jesus. William, you think Emily's involved? I don't know yet, but I know how to protect myself while I figure it out. By 5 o'clock, my financial fortress was secured. Every account protected, every vulnerability closed. I sat back in my leather chair and allowed one moment of satisfaction. Whoever had been stealing from me was about to discover that William Johnson didn't build a multi-million-dollar business by being anyone's victim. My phone sat silent. No frantic calls yet, no panicked messages, but they would come. When Ryan tried using those cards for his next expensive dinner, he'd find nothing but locked doors and canceled accounts. I wondered how long it would take them to notice. Saturday morning's peaceful silence shattered at 8:30. When my front door flew open without warning. I was drinking coffee in my kitchen when Emily burst through, using her emergency key. This wasn't an emergency. This was war. Dad, why did you lock the accounts? My husband is furious. Her voice echoed through my house with anger I hadn't heard since she was 16. But Emily wasn't 16 anymore. She was 35, a registered nurse. A married woman who apparently thought her father's accounts were community property. She stood in my doorway, still in hospital scrubs from her night shift, dark hair in a messy bun, brown eyes blazing. She looked like Susan when fired up, except Susan never defended someone stealing from me. "Good morning, Emily," I said calmly. "Which accounts are you referring to?" Don't play games, Dad. Ryan tried using the credit card for groceries and it was declined. Everything's locked online. What did you do? The pieces clicked. Ryan had sent her too much of a coward to face me himself, so he weaponized my daughter's loyalty. Classic manipulation, and Emily had fallen completely. I secured my accounts after discovering irregularities. What I want to know is why your husband thinks he should access my credit cards. Emily's anger faltered. He was said we could use them for emergencies. Remember our car repairs last year? One emergency 18 months ago doesn't mean permanent access to my finances, Emily. But Dad, we're family. Ryan's been helping with your investments, managing your online accounts. He's building our future. My blood went cold. Ryan, managing my online accounts. When had I agreed to that? What online accounts has Ryan been managing? I don't know details. He handles our financial stuff. He's good with computers and investments. He said you asked for help because technology confuses your generation. The insult stung less than realizing. My daughter was completely manipulated. Ryan had convinced her his theft was helpful assistance. Emily, sit down. We need to talk. I don't want to sit. I want you to unlock the account so Ryan stops being angry. He's been pacing all morning, saying you don't trust us, treating us like criminals. Maybe because someone's been acting like a criminal. How can you say that about Ryan? He loves me. Loves our family. He's working hard to give us a good life. I retrieved the credit reports from my office and spread them across my kitchen table. Emily, look at these credit reports for 3 accounts opened in my name without my knowledge. She approached reluctantly, anger shifting to confusion. Chase Sapphire Reserve, American Express Platinum, Bank of America Premium, all opened within 6 months. All carrying $85,000 in balances. All with statements mailed to your house. Emily stared like the papers were a foreign language. I don't understand. These are credit cards someone opened using my personal information. Someone with access to my social security number, birth date, financial history. Someone who knew how to forge my signature and where to send bills so I wouldn't see them. But I've never seen these statements. Our mail goes too. She stopped mid-sentence, face going pale. Emily, when did you last personally check your mail? Ryan always. He gets the mail. He handles our bills, and silence stretched between us. I watched my daughter's world crumble as she realized she didn't know what mail came to her house, what accounts existed, or what her husband was doing behind her back. Dad, she whispered. I don't know anything about these accounts. The weight of Emily's. Realization hung in my kitchen when Ryan's BMW roared into my driveway. My daughter's face shifted from confusion to panicked loyalty. He's here, she whispered, as if Ryan's arrival would make the fraudulent reports disappear. Ryan burst through my door with manufactured confidence, all swagger and authority. William, what's this about locked accounts? Emily called upset, saying there's some misunderstanding. I gestured to the papers. No misunderstanding, Ryan. $85,000 in fraudulent debt using my information. It's mailed to your house. Ryan's eyes flicked to the documents. For a split second, I saw recognition, not surprise. He recovered quickly. This is identity theft, William. Someone's targeting our family. We should call police immediately. He placed a protective hand on Emily's shoulder. Honey, this happened to my cousin in Dallas. These criminals are sophisticated. Your cousin didn't have statements sent to his house, I said quietly. They used our address to avoid detection. If they sent bills to you, you'd have caught this months ago. Smooth, practiced, almost believable. Ryan had prepared for this day, but he was trying to con someone who'd spent decades dealing with cheaters. Interesting theory, but it doesn't explain how someone got my social security number, mother's maiden name, and banking history. That's not internet information. Emily looked between us. Maybe someone hacked your computer, Dad. Went through your mail. Ryan nodded enthusiastically. Exactly. These thieves are professionals. They watched your house, went through trash, intercepted mail. We should file police reports immediately. Already done, I said, watching Ryan's expression falter. Filed reports yesterday. Froze accounts. Changed passwords. Contacted my attorney? Your attorney? Ryan's voice rose. Dad, why involve lawyers before talking to us? We're family. We want to help. The guilt trip. Emotional manipulation designed to make me feel bad for protecting myself. I involved my attorney because someone with intimate access to my information has been systematically defrauding me. Someone who knew how to forge my signature and where to send evidence so I wouldn't see it. Are you accusing us? Ryan's tone became aggressive. That's serious, William. Emily and I have done nothing but help you since Susan died. We've supported you, treated you like family. You are family, Ryan, which makes this betrayal worse. Emily stepped between us, tears streaming. Stop it, both of you. Dad, Ryan would never steal from you. Ryan, my father isn't some senile old man. Somebody needs to explain what's really happening. Silence, except for Susan's antique clock ticking. Ryan's mask was slipping, friendly demeanor replaced by something harder. I think, Ryan said slowly, that grief and isolation are making you paranoid, William. Maybe it's time to consider you're not thinking clearly. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Ryan was suggesting mental incompetence, laying groundwork for different manipulation. You're right, Ryan, I'm not thinking clearly, which is why I'm hiring professionals to think for me. I pulled out my phone and dialed. Thomas, it's William Johnson. I need your best private investigator today. Ryan's face went white. William, that's unnecessary. We can work this out as family. We tried that approach. It didn't work. I looked directly into Ryan's eyes as Thomas confirmed the appointment. I'm going to find out exactly who you really are. Ryan, Tuesday morning arrived with a kind of clarity that comes after making hard decisions. 3 days had passed since I'd hired Thomas's best investigator, and my phone buzzed at exactly 9 a.m. with the call I'd been expecting. Mr. Johnson, this is Detective Mark Stevens. Retired SAPD. Thomas asked me to handle your case personally. Mark's voice carried the weight of 30 years investigating financial crimes. If anyone could uncover Ryan's real story, it was him. What did you find? More than you probably wanted to know. Can you meet me at my office in an hour? This conversation needs to happen face to face. An hour later, I sat across from Mark in his downtown office. Watching him spread photographs and documents across his desk like pieces of a puzzle. Your son-in-law is a professional, Mr. Johnson. This isn't his first rodeo. Mark slid a photograph toward me. An elderly woman with silver hair and kind eyes, sitting in what looked like a living room very similar to mine. Margaret Evans, 78 years old widow, lives in Alamo Heights, about 2 miles from your house. Ring any bells? I studied the photo. Never seen her before in my life, but Ryan Davis has, extensively. Mark pulled out a thick file. 4 years ago, Margaret's daughter Laura married a charming young man she met at a coffee shop. Guess who? My stomach dropped. Ryan. Ryan used a different last name then. Ryan Carter, same L though, targeted a lonely widow through her daughter, gained access to personal information, opened multiple credit accounts. By the time Margaret figured out what was happening, he'd stolen $45,000. What happened to the daughter? Laura divorced him when the truth came out, but not before he destroyed her relationship with her mother. Margaret spent 6 months in legal hell trying to prove the fraud. Ryan disappeared before charges could be filed. Mark spread out more documents. Bank statements, credit applications, forged signatures. The pattern was identical to what had happened to me, down to the smallest details. The addresses, the timing, even the types of accounts. It's all the same playbook. Ryan Davis is a predator who specifically targets older people through their adult children. How many others? Margaret is the only one I found so far, but I'm still digging. Men like this don't usually stop at 2 victims. I stared at Margaret's photograph, seeing my own story reflected in her kind eyes. Is she willing to talk? Already asked. She wants to meet you this afternoon. Says it's time someone stopped this bastard. 2 hours later. I sat in Margaret Evans's immaculate living room, listening to a story that could have been my own. She served tea in delicate china cups, her hands steady, despite the pain in her voice. He was so charming at first, Margaret said. Called me Mom, brought flowers, helped with yard work. Laura was so happy, and I thought I'd finally gotten the son I'd always wanted. When did you realize something was wrong? When my credit card was declined at the grocery store, just like what happened to you, I imagine. By then, he'd opened 5 accounts in my name. 5 accounts I knew nothing about. Margaret pulled out a manila folder thick with documents. Bank statements, credit reports, even recordings of phone calls I made to the fraud departments. I kept everything. Why didn't you press charges? Her expression hardened. I tried, but Ryan had convinced Laura that I was getting senile, that I was confused about giving him permission. She testified on his behalf, said I'd authorized everything. Without her support, the prosecutor said it was, he said. She said. What about Laura now? She finally saw the truth when he disappeared with her savings account, too. But it was too late for us. We haven't spoken in 4 years. Margaret's voice broke slightly. He didn't just steal my money, Mr. Johnson. He stole my daughter. I reached across and squeezed her hand. He's not going to steal mine. Margaret's grip tightened. Be careful, William. When I started fighting back, Ryan got dangerous. He's not just a thief. He's a predator who destroys families for sport. What do you mean dangerous? Margaret's eyes went cold. He threatened me. Said if I didn't drop the investigation, I might have an accident. An old woman living alone who would question a fall down the stairs. The room fell silent except for the ticking of her grandfather clock. He's more dangerous than you think, William. And now that you've cornered him, he's going to fight back. Thursday evening, I called Emily and asked her to bring Ryan for dinner. My voice was calm, friendly. After 40 years in construction, I'd learned the best time to demolish something was when your target felt secure. They arrived at 6:30, Ryan carrying expensive wine like a peace offering. William, I'm glad you called. We need to clear the air about this misunderstanding. Ryan's smile was practiced. Families shouldn't fight over money. You're right. Families shouldn't fight over money. I gestured toward my dining table, where I'd laid out Mark Stevens' evidence. Which is why I think you should meet someone. Ryan's smile faltered, seeing documents spread like courtroom evidence. Bank statements, photographs, credit reports. In the center, Margaret Evans's portrait staring up at him. Ryan, I'd like you to meet Margaret Evans. Or maybe you remember her as your previous mother-in-law. The transformation was instantaneous. Ryan's mask didn't slip. It shattered. His expression twisted into something cold, calculating. You son of a bitch, he whispered. Emily went pale. She'd seen flashes of Ryan's temper before cursing at drivers. Dismissing service workers, cold treatment of people he considered beneath him. She'd rationalized it away. Now, seeing that darkness directed at her father, she couldn't pretend anymore. Ryan Carter, wasn't it then? Different name, same game. $45,000 stolen from a 78-year-old widow using identical methods. Ryan's hands clenched. That old hag told you about Laura. Everything forged signatures, manipulated daughter, threats when she fought back. I stood up. She told me what you said about accidents happening to old women living alone. Dad, what's he talking about? Emily's voice trembled with recognition, not confusion. Ryan spun toward her, face contorted with rage she'd learned to tiptoe around. Your father hired some detective to dig up ancient history. He's trying to frame me for something before I even met you. Frame you. I pulled out Margaret's statements. These are your signatures, Ryan. Your handwriting, your pattern. You don't know what you're dealing with, old man. The pretense was gone. This was the Ryan Emily had glimpsed in unguarded moments, on phone calls when things didn't go his way. I know exactly what I'm dealing with. A con artist who targets elderly people through their children. Ryan stepped toward me, voice dropping to the menacing whisper Emily had heard him use on others. You think you're so smart, building your construction empire, playing grieving widower? But you're just another Mark, William, another lonely fool with too much money. Emily stood frozen, finally seeing what she'd denied for 3 years. I gave you 3 years, Ryan continued, voice rising with familiar escalation she'd learned to fear. 3 years pretending to care about your boring stories and dead wife? 3 years playing perfect son-in-law while you sat on millions like some dragon. Ryan, stop, Emily pleaded, using her practiced de-escalation tone. Shut up, Emily. Your father wants games? Fine. Ryan's eyes locked on mine with hatred. You have no idea what I'm capable of, William. Margaret Evans learned. Laura learned when she chose her mother over me. Are you threatening me? Ryan's smile was all teeth, the same one Emily had seen before he destroyed people. I'm educating you. You're a 70-year-old man living alone. Accidents happen, heart attacks, falls, gas leaks especially to people who stick their noses where they don't belong. Deafening silence. Emily stared at her husband, no longer able to pretend she didn't know what he was capable of. Get out of my house, I said quietly. I'll leave, but this isn't over. Ryan headed for the door, turning back with the look Emily knew meant someone would pay. You'll regret crossing me, old man. Friday morning, I was at the San Antonio Police Department before they'd finished their first pot of coffee. Ryan's threat still echoed in my mind, but fear had transformed into cold determination. 40 years of business had taught me that when someone declares war, you respond with overwhelming force. Detective Sarah Lopez listened to my story with the patience of someone who'd heard it all before. But when I spread Margaret's documents across her desk alongside my own evidence, her expression sharpened. Mr. Johnson, this is a clear pattern of elder financial abuse. With 2 documented victims and identical methods, we have grounds for multiple felony charges. How long before you can arrest him? Give me 24 hours to coordinate with the DA's office. We'll want Margaret Evans' testimony. I'll need you both to come in for formal statements. By Saturday afternoon, Ryan Davis was in handcuffs. Emily called me, sobbing from the police station. Dad, they arrested Ryan at work in front of everyone as coworkers, his boss. They're saying he stole money from you and some other woman. This has to be a mistake. It's not a mistake, Emily. Come home. We need to talk. When Emily arrived at my house, her face was swollen from crying. But there was something different in her eyes. The blind loyalty was cracking, replaced by the beginning of clarity. The police showed me documents, Dad, bank statements, credit applications. They looked like Ryan's handwriting, but he swears he didn't sign them. What does your heart tell you, Emily? She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. My heart tells me I've been making excuses for 3 years. Every time Ryan got angry, every time money disappeared from our account, every time he had explanations that didn't quite make sense. The bail hearing is Monday. Ryan's lawyer is asking for $50,000. Emily looked up sharply. Are you going to pay it? That's not my decision to make. It's yours. Mine. You're his wife. You're the one who has to decide whether you believe he's innocent or guilty. Whether you trust him to show up for trial, or whether you think he'll disappear like he did with Margaret's daughter. Emily was quiet for another long moment. Dad, can I ask you something? When Mom was sick, did you ever think about running away? Just leaving because it was too hard, too complicated? Every day. But I didn't, because that's what love means. You stay and fight for the people who matter. Ryan left me at the police station. When they arrested him, he looked right at me and said, "This is your father's fault. Fix it." He didn't say he was innocent. He didn't say he loved me. He just gave me orders. Monday's bail hearing was a formality. Ryan's lawyer argued that his client was a respected marketing professional with ties to the community. The prosecutor countered with evidence of previous fraud and flight risk. The judge set bail at $75,000. Emily didn't pay it. Tuesday evening, Ryan called me from jail. His voice was different now. No charm, no manipulation, just cold fury. You destroyed my life, old man. When I get out of here, you're going to pay for what you've done to my marriage. Is that a threat, Ryan? It's a promise. I hung up and immediately called Detective Lopez. Ryan Davis just threatened me from jail. I have it recorded. Wednesday morning, Ryan's bail was revoked for witness intimidation. The judge ordered him held without bond pending trial. That afternoon, Emily walked into my kitchen carrying a manila folder and a look of grim determination I recognized from her mother. "I filed the divorce papers this morning," she said quietly, and I called the prosecutor's office. "I want to testify against Ryan at his trial." "Are you sure, Emily?" "I spent 3 years married to a stranger, a man who targeted our family, who stole from you, who threatened your life. I won't spend another day pretending I don't know who he really is." She sat down at the kitchen table, where we'd had so many Sunday dinners, where Ryan had charmed us all with his stories and his smile. "I want to help you get justice for you, for Margaret Evans. It's for whoever else he's hurt." Emily's voice grew stronger. "And I want to make sure he never hurts another family." Again, November in San Antonio brought the kind of crisp air that reminded me why. I'd built my life in Texas. 8 months had passed since Ryan's arrest. 8 months of depositions, legal briefs, and sleepless nights, wondering if justice would actually be served. Now sitting in the Bexar County Courthouse on a Tuesday morning, I watched my former son-in-law shuffle into the courtroom in an orange jumpsuit and shackles. Ryan Davis looked nothing like the charming man who'd once carried expensive wine to my dinner table. 8 months in county jail had stripped away his polish, revealing the hollow-eyed predator underneath. His expensive haircut had grown out. His confident posture had collapsed, and his trademark smile was nowhere to be found. All rise for the Honorable Judge Patricia Morrison. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Morrison, a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, took her seat. I'd researched her background, 30 years on the bench, known for harsh sentences in financial crimes cases. "Mr. Davis, you stand accused of multiple counts of identity theft, elder financial abuse, and fraud. How do you plead?" Ryan's attorney, a tired-looking public defender named Thompson, stood beside his client. "Your Honor, my client wishes to enter a guilty plea to all charges in exchange for the prosecution's recommended sentence. A guilty plea." After 8 months of Ryan's lawyers claiming innocence, fighting every charge, demanding evidence hearings, he was finally admitting what we'd all known from the beginning. "Mr. Davis, do you understand that by pleading guilty, you're admitting to systematically defrauding elderly victims of over $130,000? "Yes, Your Honor." Ryan's voice was barely a whisper. "And do you understand that this plea agreement includes full restitution to your victims and a prison sentence of 3 years? "Yes, Your Honor." Judge Morrison turned to the prosecution table. "Ms. Chen, I understand you have victim impact statements." Assistant District Attorney Laura Chen, sharp woman in her 40s who'd handled our case with relentless precision, stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. We have statements from William Johnson and Margaret Evans, both victims of the defendant's systematic fraud." Margaret Evans walked slowly to the witness stand, her cane tapping against the marble floor. At 78, she looked fragile, but her voice was steel when she spoke. "Your Honor, Ryan Davis didn't just steal my money. He stole my relationship with my daughter. He destroyed 4 years of my life and left me afraid to trust anyone. But I'm here today because I want other families to know that predators like this can be stopped." When Margaret finished, it was Emily's turn. My daughter approached the witness stand with the same determination I'd seen in her mother. She'd lost weight over the past 8 months, but she'd gained something more valuable: her strength. "Your Honor, I was married to Ryan Davis for 3 years. I thought I knew him, but I was living with a stranger who was systematically destroying my family. He manipulated me into believing his lies, used me to access my father's personal information, and turned me into an unwitting accomplice in his crimes." Emily's voice grew stronger as she continued. "But today, I'm here to say that families can survive this kind of betrayal. My father taught me that love means fighting for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." Ryan stared at his hands throughout Emily's testimony. Never once looking up at the woman he'd deceived and abandoned, Judge Morrison reviewed the sentencing guidelines, the plea agreement, and the victim impact statements. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. "Mr. Davis, you are a predator who specifically targeted vulnerable elderly victims through their own family members. You violated the most sacred trust, the trust between family, for personal gain. This court sentences you to 3 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You will pay full restitution of $130,000 to your victims, plus court costs and fees. The gavel fell with a sound like thunder. Ryan was led away in shackles without looking back. No final words, no apologies. No acknowledgement of the lives he destroyed. Outside the courthouse, Emily and I stood in the November sunshine, breathing free air for the first time in months. Is it over, Dad? The legal part is over. Ryan will serve his time, pay his debts, and hopefully never hurt another family. What about us? Can a family heal from this kind of betrayal? May in San Antonio arrived with the kind of warmth that promises new beginnings. 6 months had passed since Ryan's sentencing. The scars on our family were finally beginning to heal over, leaving us stronger in the broken places. I found Emily in my backyard that Sunday morning, kneeling beside Susan's rose garden with dirt under her fingernails and peace on her face. She'd moved back into her childhood bedroom after the divorce was finalized. And slowly, we were learning to be a family again. The white roses are blooming beautifully this year, she said without looking up. Mom would have loved them. She would have loved seeing you here, taking care of them. Emily sat back on her heels, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Dad, I need to tell you something. I've been going to therapy, and my counselor says I should talk about the guilt I'm carrying. What guilt, Emily? I brought him into our family. I married a predator and gave him access to everything you'd worked for. If I had been smarter, more careful, more suspicious, her voice broke. I almost lost you because I was too blind to see what was right in front of me. I knelt beside her in the dirt, taking her hands in mine. Emily, you were a victim too. Ryan spent years manipulating you, isolating you from your instincts. The fact that you found the courage to stand up to him, to testify against him, that takes more strength than most people have. But how do I trust my judgment again? How do I know I won't make the same mistake? By remembering what real love looks like. Your mother and I, we had disagreements. We had problems. But we never tried to control each other. We never used guilt or fear or manipulation. Real love builds you up. It doesn't tear you down. Emily wiped her eyes with the back of her gardening glove. Margaret Evans called yesterday. She wants me to speak at a support group for families affected by financial abuse. What did you tell her? I said yes. If my story can help one family recognize the warning signs, maybe some good can come from all this pain. Over the past 6 months, Emily and I had become unlikely advocates for elder abuse prevention. We'd testified before the state legislature about the need for stronger identity theft laws. We'd worked with local banks to develop better fraud detection systems. We'd even started a support group that met monthly at the community center. Margaret Evans had become like family to us, the grandmother Emily had never known, and the friend I'd never expected to find. Together, we'd helped 3 other families navigate similar situations, providing testimony, moral support, and proof that predators could be stopped. Dad, Emily said, standing up and brushing dirt from her knees, do you ever regret fighting back? It would have been easier to just pay the money and let Ryan disappear. Easier, yes, but not right. When someone attacks your family, you don't negotiate. You don't enable. You fight back with everything you have, even when it means losing relationships, especially then. Emily. I learned something important these past 18 months. The people who truly love you will stand with you when you're protecting what matters. The people who don't, well, you're better off knowing where they really stand. That afternoon, we drove to Margaret's house for our monthly support group meeting. 7 families now, all survivors of financial abuse, all learning to trust again. As I watched Emily share her story with a young couple whose grandfather had been victimized by his caregiver, I felt Susan's presence in the room. She would have been proud of the woman our daughter had become. On the drive home, Emily was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Dad, what would you tell someone who's going through what we went through? I'd tell them that protecting your family isn't selfish. It's necessary. I'd tell them that real love doesn't ask you to ignore red flags or make excuses for bad behavior. And I'd tell them that it's never too late to fight back, even if it's scary. Especially if it's scary. The people who prey on families count on our fear, our guilt, our desire to keep the peace. But sometimes keeping the peace means going to war. As we pulled into my driveway, Emily turned to me with Susan's smile and her mother's strength. Thank you, Dad, for fighting for us. For showing me what real protection looks like. Thank you for coming home, Emily, for choosing family over fear.